The patron saint of all things terrifying and macabre, Scary Larry Dwyer, invites you across the pond for a nightmare filled with horror. British horror. That's right. You've stepped into season 4 of Scary Larry's House of Horrors. This time, it's Hammer time. Oh, and as normal, we'll be swearing a fucking lot and spoiling a ton of shit. You've been warned.
The Goat of Mentis. The devil himself.
Well, it's time to get evil again, everybody. Scary Larry's House of Horrors. Season 4 finally begins. That's right, Season 3, we left you off in, what was it, July of 2000?
At least 2 years ago.
2018?
No, 2023. In the summer, we finished off Season 3 with the losers list, with the episode all about the disco mermaids. That's right, the lore. Last year in 2024, we did episodes, but it was no season. We just did a bunch of specials. Well, we're back. We've been talking about it for quite a long time. It is time to drop the hammer on you motherfuckers. That's right. We're heading over to jolly old England, and we're discussing the Hammer horror series and all that good stuff. So let's get into it. Tonight's episode, the first of these, 7 or 8 we'll be doing in this series, is all about The Devil Rides Out from 1968. Let's do it.
Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?
All right, so here's some information. Oh,
So is your name John?
Yeah, my name's John. Look at that. Look at that. I got it. Yeah.
Larry?
Oh, hi. I'm Scary Larry. John fucked me all up, man.
I fucked everybody up. We're going to start that over.
Yeah, do that again.
Boop. All right, we just did the jump. Okay. All right, my name is John.
My name is Lloyd.
I'm Scary Larry.
And I'm also John.
Yes, another John. John, are you John with an H or John with just an N?
Just an N. I mean, it's a shortening of Jonathan.
Okay. All right. So John is joining us from England. Now, he's lived in the U.S. for quite a while, but he is an actual Brit, so we brought him along for a little bit of, what do you want to call it, street cred over there in the jolly ole. So we'll talk a little bit about John and his endeavors in a little bit, but let's get into The Devil Rides Out and some of the information about it. Now, first of all, you can find this movie as The Devil Rides Out. That is the original Hammer title. But if you're in the U.S., it was probably most likely released and shown to you maybe as The Devil's Bride. Okay, so it has a different title over here, but you can still find it under the UK title in many spots. It came out in the UK on July 20th of 1968. Huge summer blockbuster, I'm sure, over there. And it came out on December 18th in the US. Now, before I get into the director and all that stuff, we're talking about Hammer. Now, we're going to get deeper into Hammer, but I'm going to give you the cliff notes of Hammer horror right here at the beginning just to kind of set up what it's all about. You can go to hammerfilms.com. That is the website for all things Hammer currently. In November of 1934, it was established, and in the 1940s, it was mainly known for doing adaptations of radio shows and serials. Now, John, being a Brit, being somebody that probably knows a lot more about this than me, if anything I say sounds wrong, you just jump in and correct me, because I did some research, but I'm fine with being corrected because I don't believe everything I see on the internet. In 1953, the success of the adaptation of the Quatermass Experiment. John, are you familiar with the Quatermass Experiment?
I am, yes.
Okay.
It's fantastic. It sort of falls into the British sci-fi of that era that kind of Wheatley did some of as well. But yeah, it's fantastic.
Okay. Hammer decided to kind of shift their focus into the horror realm of films and adaptations. And also one of their very big, I guess, points to put out there to make people want to see these things is it was in color, like with an exclamation point, because up to that point, so many movies over here in America, as we talked years ago about the Universal films, were still in black and white, but these were in like vivid color. Okay. And they did a lot of adaptations of the films that we talked about in the Universal those Universal monsters. Frankenstein to the Wolfman to the Mummy, they also did theirs. In the 1970s, there was a decrease in any activity after several years of a lot of success with these horror movies. A lot of buyouts, a lot of leadership changes came, and Hammer kind of existed, but kind of wasn't really much of an entity anymore in the filmmaking realm. In 2008, all of a sudden, they started producing films again. The remake of Let the Right One In, Let Me In was a Hammer film, and the Daniel Radcliffe ghost story, The Woman in Black, was also a Hammer film. But again, at some point, it kind of fell off again. And in 2023, it was acquired by a British theater magnate, like, I don't know, some guy that's really big in British theater, with the very, I guess, succinct and makes sense name, John Gore. So Hammer is, again, I guess, getting into film production as I said before, you can go to the website hammerfilms.com. Now, I do want to bring this up, and I want to bring Larry into it because this is, his thing. Larry, you didn't choose like Frankenstein and the Wolfman movies, or, the ones that we kind of did for Universal, the ones that are kind of considered, if you're a novice, considered like kind of like low-hanging fruit for Hammer, right? Like Christopher Lee, Dracula, that stuff. You chose some weirdo stuff for us to do. Why'd you do that?
Well, I mean, first of all, in my opinion, we'll talk about it. We're starting with one of maybe top 3 Hammer films of all time, in my opinion. I'll just throw that out there. But also, most people, when they think of Hammer, you're right. They think of Chris Lee's Dracula and Peter Cushing, and some think of Oliver Reed's Wolfman, and the remakes of the Universal films. I wanted to talk about some other fun stuff, some different stuff that people might not know. I'd expect most people to know The Devil Rides Out, or at least know of. But then by the time we get into the Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde and the Karnstein trilogy and the Kung Fu Vampires, maybe people hadn't heard of them, and I think those are going to be a little more fun to talk about.
Okay, I think so too. I think it'll be good to dive into this from it. I certainly had never heard of The Devil Rides Out. Lloyd, have you ever heard of The Devil Rides Out?
Nope, never
Okay.
have.
All right, so
Just the basic ones for me.
And I have a question for the assembled Americans, if that's possible. I was interested to know because, obviously I'm a big horror fan. Obviously I've done things within the world of film writing and film podcasting and things. I was interested to know how much growing up, we're all of an age, but how much growing up was Hammer even a thing in the US? Because I kind of feel like, yes, there are Hammer fans and people can talk to me about Hammer, but I don't feel like it was the thing that it was for me growing up. Because it was on TV for me all the time. My first introduction to horror was a Hammer film. My 2 a.m. catching a thing on Channel 4, it's going to be a Hammer film. Like Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing were huge. Like it was a thing. Over here, I don't get that feeling, but you let me know.
I'll just go right off the bat and say it was nothing. As I had gotten older and was more of a fan of pop culture, I knew Hammer horror, and I started to learn, Grand Moff Tarkin isn't just Grand Moff Tarkin. Like he was a thing, right? He was Van Helsing, and he was all these other things. But for me, even my introduction to the Universal horror films was through like Abbott and Costello, or stuff like that. So that, and then like in all reality, I didn't see in full any of those movies until 5 or 6 years ago when we did them on the show with Larry.
Right.
So for me, Hammer, no existence at all. What about you, Lloyd?
Yeah, pretty much the same. I mean, I was aware of them. I knew of Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee. You would see them on TV once in a while, and I've seen maybe 1 or 2 Hammer films, but after watching this, I'm excited to check out a lot more.
So for me, I've told the story a million times. I grew up in the drive-in, right? My parents couldn't afford vacations. I never went on a vacation in my life, but every Friday night we were at the drive-in. But the drive-ins in my time, were Dawn of the Dead and Halloween 2 and Mother's Day and, all of these movies. So there was always horror I'm talking I was 4 or 5 years old seeing those. My father, who was older, would always talk about the Universal, got me into those, and then also the Hammer stuff. But that was even more hard to come by. The Hammer stuff wasn't on TV as much as Universal. You could always find a Universal Monsters film when I was a kid. the Hammer stuff would come on once in a while. And then even fast forward to, I think I was 13 or 14 when I started hanging around my local video store so much that they finally just put me to work because they couldn't fucking take it. Even in the video store, which I pretty much ran the horror section, the Hammer stuff was like very few and packed right in the corner. Like, it wasn't a thing. Like, everybody was looking for, the next, prom night, Hello Mary Lou prom night 2. They weren't looking for Hammer horror. So yeah, even in the video stores, it was kind of packed off to the side. You had to really search to find Hammer films in America back then.
That was similar with physical media, weirdly, in England. Physical media, definitely, you didn't walk into like a movie video shop and see a bunch of Hammer horrors for rent or purchase, but they were always on TV. They were kind of omnipresent. You knew that's where, when you saw Cushing in Star Wars, you knew that's where he came from. When you saw him in Top Secret doing his cameo, you knew that he was, he got that start there. And it's interesting because, like you said in your introduction, it's the first time horror. Well, it's not the first time because Herschel Gordon Lewis, but it's also sort of the first time in conjunction with Herschel Gordon Lewis in the US that horror goes color, like blood, like that, what they call Kensington gore is finally on the screen in all its red and sometimes orangey pink glory.
Yeah, definitely pink.
All right, let's get into the making of this film a little bit. The director was a guy named Terrence Fisher. Terrence Fisher was like one of the go-to Hammer guys. He made films such as The Curse of Frankenstein, Dracula, The Mummy. The screenplay was written by a guy that we definitely know the name of. We talked about a screenplay that he did for a movie that I'll mention in a second, a while ago. Richard Matheson. Richard Matheson is a pretty famous novelist. I Am Legend, Hell House, A Stir of Echoes. Screenplay-wise, he wrote the screenplay for the 1961 version of The Pit and the Pendulum, and a little film that Lloyd and I did a couple years ago with our buddy Keith Larson called Jaws 3D.
I didn't fucking know he did that screenplay.
Yeah.
That's bananas.
Yeah, I don't know how much he admits it. I think
shit.
I think when we talked about it, he definitely it was one of the ones he kind of disowned a little bit, but he did.
I gotta say,
Jaws
when
3D.
I watched Jaws 3D, I don't think Richard Matheson at all.
If I remember correctly, and I could be wrong because it's been years, I think it was like he wrote a treatment, another guy wrote a treatment, and they since
he was the first, they kept his name.
They got mashed together, right?
Yeah, that happens.
He definitely had something to do.
How
with
many
it.
times do you hear like something's written by a guy and they interview the guy and he's like, "This is nothing like what I fucking wrote."
Right.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Because he was the first contracted, so he gets the credit. But 19 people have rewritten what he wrote. I have a friend, Craig, who wrote a movie called Contracted 2. Yeah, he wrote the sequel. And he's like, he sent me the script. He's like, you got to see this. He's like, this movie that came out is nothing like what I wrote. But since I was the first guy, like, they had to use my name. He's like, but everybody else completely just changed it all up.
Yeah.
I guess that's pretty typical.
Well, they have to use, I think you have to, if you're rewriting a script in order to get credited by the WGA, you have to have written at least over 25% new material.
Okay.
It's why the whole Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas still has Alex Cox's name on it, even though essentially the dialogue is Hunter S. Thompson's. It's a whole legal thing.
Interesting.
Yeah. Other screenplay, one more screenplay he wrote was for the Christopher Reeve time-traveling film Somewhere in Time.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So this is
by Iron Maiden. Is that the one?
Yeah, caught somewhere in
and we have I Am Legend to thank for Night of the Living Dead, which, as we talk about modern horror, is the godfather of modern horror. Like, without it, you don't get any of the films that follow.
Oh yeah.
1934 novel by Dennis Wheatley. Dennis Wheatley also wrote some books: The Second Seal, The Scarlet Imposter, and my favorite title, The Irish Witch. I just like that. The Irish Witch. This was filmed between August and September of 1967, so it looks like just 1 month. And it says, boy, I'm sorry, John, if I fuck these areas in England's names up, or if you're from one of them, but it says that it was filmed in Hertfordshire and Buckinghamshire.
Hertfordshire.
Hertfordshire.
It's like when you say Newfoundland, you just kind of bring it all together in one line. So just Hertfordshire, Buckinghamshire, just
Hertfordshire, Buckinghamshire. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, that is everything I have for, production and those kind of notes. So let's go over to the Manster with the cast.
I have one other thing to say about production, maybe.
Go for it.
Just that it took several years to actually get made due to they put it on the back burner for fear of censorship because of the satanic material.
Yeah, I did read that. Yes,
Christopher Lee was instrumental actually in getting this made. He had talked to I just read that in the Hammer book the other day. He was a big fan of Wheatley's books and was begging them to license some of them for Hammer films. And so they did. And I think the only ones they actually ended up making were this and To the Devil a Daughter, which isn't. It's all right. It's slow. But I think those are the only ones they ended up making out of Wheatley's books. But yeah, Christopher Lee was instrumental in getting this done.
We'll get to it probably in the cast notes. Maybe Lloyd has it, but Christopher Lee, this is his, I think, favorite, he says, of the Hammer films he did. And he's obviously much more known for probably Dracula, not to mention much more known for being a villain all the time. It's so weird that he's two things are so weird. Two things are really weird about this Christopher Lee performance. Number one is that he's the hero. And number two, I'm pretty sure my girlfriend was thinking he was pretty hot. As we were watching it, I
He's a
caught some
handsome
looks.
guy.
He's very suave.
Yeah. I caught some looks. I caught a couple looks and I was getting a little pissed off at Count Dooku there, but all right, Manster, let's talk about the cast.
Made her want to visit Summer Isle. Is that?
Yeah.
Well, it's one of those interesting things, isn't it? That he spends the first part of his career with Hammer under like thick makeup most of the time, which is weird because he has this sort of matinee idol, old style Hollywood, especially when he was a younger man, kind of look.
Yeah. All right, Manster, hit the cast.
Shabuya roll call.
Well, Christopher Lee, he's the star of this thing as Nicholas Duc de Richelieu. I hope I said that right.
De Richelieu.
De Richelieu.
Yeah.
He is an aristocrat, an adventurer. He's very knowledgeable in the occult.
A little too knowledgeable, if you ask me.
Too knowledgeable. Yeah, knows everything. Christopher Lee is the step cousin of Ian Fleming. He is the
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, uncle of Harriet Walker. I don't know if you guys know that, but she's in Succession and The Crown, two shows that I like. He was in the British Air Force. He sang opera. He put out albums.
We don't have enough time
there's
to literally discuss the greatness.
Yeah.
I think
he sung symphonic power metal. Come on.
Yeah.
Symphonic
Isn't
power
he also
metal.
related to Arthur Conan Doyle, who wrote Sherlock Holmes?
I'd read that. I don't know if it was true or just. I've read so much about him and I don't even know what's 8 languages he speaks. Like I've heard all sorts of craziness.
Yeah. The most accomplished human on the planet.
Basically.
Wasn't
literally
he also
the most interesting man in the world.
Yeah.
Wasn't he also like a British spy, or is that just like
yes?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the famous story from Lord of the Rings is where he told Peter Jackson, "People don't make that sound when they're stabbed." You know, and he's like, "I know the sound people make when they're stabbed." You're like, "I don't want to know, Pete."
Yeah, I don't want to know how you know that,
Chris. I don't know, Chris. Sorry,
I think he was. I think he was in the military in Finland first, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I don't know. I bet you somebody will look it up.
We're gonna do an addendum episode all about Christopher Lee.
We just read his Wikipedia page.
Yeah, you could do so much.
He invented the potato.
Yes.
Might have. Might have.
And then deprive the Irish of it. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, exactly. You will remember him from the fine movie Wicker Man.
Yes.
He was Scaramanga in Man with the Golden Gun. Obviously, Count Dooku in Star Wars. Saruman in the Lord of the Rings films. And
Willy Wonka's dad.
Yeah.
In the Germany Death.
Right, he was a dentist.
Yeah, that was a bizarre turn.
Yeah.
So then we have Charles Gray as Mokata, the charismatic, powerful occult leader.
Should we say now that this man has no fucking neck?
I guess that's true.
Do you get it? Do you get it?
Yeah.
Rocky Horror Picture Show. That's what you say. That's what you say every time he shows up on the fucking screen.
I'm not a fan.
I saw it like 200 times in the theater in New Haven. So
yeah, he did play the criminologist.
Yep.
In Rocky Horror. He was Blofeld in Diamonds Are Forever, and another character, Deco Henderson, and You Only Live Twice.
Yeah, like Robbie Coltrane, someone who has played both a hero and a villain in the Bond franchise.
Yep. Then we have, and I don't know if I'll say this right. Looks like Nike.
I doubt it. I doubt it's Nike.
Perhaps it's a Nikkei.
Nikkei. Yeah, it's Nikkei.
Nikkei.
It's like Nikki, but Nikkei. You just go up
Okay.
at the end.
Nikkei Arigi as Tanith Carlisle.
It's a very handsome woman. She's
Yeah.
very
Oh,
attractive.
she's stunning.
She is.
She's
yeah,
very
she is
attractive.
She's modern looking. That's what's so weird.
You're 100% right, John. Like I found every time. Admittedly, I probably haven't seen my fault that this in probably it's got to be over 20 years since I've seen The Devil Rides Out. But I remembered watching it this time and doing the same thing this time, just staring at her like she is just gorgeous and like modern.
Yes.
Like she doesn't look like it's the 60s. She looks like a woman that you would see today. And I don't even know if that sounds right. I don't even know if I'm explaining that right, but it just doesn't. It seems like
when I was reviewing this last night for Letterboxd after I watched it, I was like, how do I explain this without sounding weird? But it's entirely true, Larry. Like, yeah, she looks like she wouldn't be out of place in a 90s slasher or something, even though she's from the 60s. And the only reason I say that is because when you go back to whether it's James Bond, whether it's Hammer Horror, whether it's whatever, you go back to movies from the 60s, people do look different. They just they have a
Ingrid
different
Pitt,
vibe.
gorgeous, but looks like she's from the 60s.
She just has a classic beauty look.
Yeah.
Man.
She's hot.
Caroline Monroe is another one. Caroline Monroe is one that.
She right, and she'll go eat with Joe Spinell at Clams Casino.
I love that they were best, like they were dear friends.
That's this Maniac, one of my favorite movies of all time. But I cannot fathom how he got that date every time. Listen, I love Joe Spinell, but come on, man.
He's so greasy.
He's so sweaty.
Come on, dude. There's no way.
He smells like garlic.
Yeah.
Like he's so sweaty. Yeah.
But in real life, they were like chums. Like that.
Very close. Very close. And they did the last horror film together as well, which is another favorite of mine. I absolutely adore that movie.
Somebody put it out recently, and was it Vinegar Syndrome? I don't know, but
88 films did. 88 films did in the UK. I don't know about over here, but I have the 88 films Blu-ray.
Yeah. Sorry, guys.
It's okay. No, it's okay.
It's all right. It's all right. Moving on. Then we have Leon Green as Rex Van Ryn. Crazily enough, this guy has a great operatic bass voice, and he was dubbed by Patrick Allen.
Yeah, I thought I felt like he was dubbed. Yeah. I gotta say too, I just want to put this out there. I want a shirt that says Rex Van Ryn is a pimp because how many dudes show up to hang out with you by landing a biplane by you?
Yeah.
He flew a biplane to chill out with Christopher Lee for the day. Yeah. And he didn't even know they were going to get into some satanic fucking hijinks. It's like if I showed up in my Subaru somewhere, he's like, I don't drive a Subaru. I'm a man. I fly a biplane across the country.
He flew a biplane and then pulled a woman who was in the middle of a satanic ritual. Just you're with me now. You're my girlfriend now.
And that's
people.
And that's how you know that Tanith was hot. It takes an extra special woman to mesmerize Rex Van Ryn. And she, without them even having done anything, they don't even smooch. He is pussy whipped for her for the rest of the movie. Yeah, he's knocking dudes out. He's carrying her Swamp Thing style out of rooms. He's all about it.
Yep.
So,
he's by hands. I mean, look, Christopher Lee's phenomenal. Charles Gray is great. But he is my favorite in this movie. Just he's
bonkers,
square-jawed, coiffured hair. When he's in the middle of the car chase and he gets like hit with water, he does that James Bond thing of not even reacting. He just he carries on. He
punches out a windshield.
He punches out a windshield
while he's driving.
Punches Charles Gray in the middle of a thing. He's
punches
driving
like 44
around.
People.
This movie should be called Punches Galore.
Yeah. And he's wearing a 3-piece suit throughout the entire thing. Never gets a little nick or scratch or mud or blood or anything on it at all. He's just, he's like James Bond in the middle of this thing. It's great.
John, do you know why? Do you know why they overdubbed him? Because I don't.
I don't either. I'm sorry, I don't either. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I couldn't find anything because I was really curious about that. I don't think I ever noticed it. I didn't remember it, but I was reading and was like, oh shit, yeah. Now I can tell now that I've read that, but I couldn't find anything on why. I don't know if his accent was too thick or, yeah, it's strange.
The only thing I could think of is the guy who dubbed him, Patrick Allen, is the husband of another character in this movie.
Oh, okay. All right.
So we'll get to that. So Leon Green, he was in A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, Camelot, and Flash Gordon.
Our Flash Gordon?
Our
Flash
Flash
Gordon?
Gordon, yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Fuck was he in Flash Gordon? I gotta find that now.
He was one of the
All right.
Birdmen.
He was one of the boreworms. That's
Yeah.
what he was.
He's that little green thing that
In the
Timothy
fucking
Dalton-
tree stump?
Yeah, in the fucking tree stump. No, his credit is just Colonel of the Battle Control Room. So he's like one of the lead guys. Where I think is it Clytus, the like weird metal faced guy.
I think so.
I think he's like friends with Clytus, maybe.
All right.
Clytus's buddy.
I haven't
Yeah,
seen that in
Clytus
years.
is pal. I'll have to rewatch it. 'cause
Yeah,
I
he's
love that.
Blightus. Clytus Blightus.
I don't believe that Leon Green is a blight on anything. I believe
No.
that's the hero that we should have got, really.
All right. Then we have Patrick Mower as Simon Aaron, the other initiate into the cult. I don't know.
Annoying.
I don't know anything
That's
he did.
annoying.
He had dozens of movies and TV, but I didn't know any of them myself. Then we have Sarah Lawson, who plays Marie Eaton. She is the niece of de Richelieu.
Do you know who she looked like to me? She looked like young Vicki Lawrence, Grandma. You know,
Oh, yeah. I can see it.
There was just a Vicki Lawrence thing going on there for me.
Why can't I picture Vicki Lawrence? Who the
Vicki
fuck-
Lawrence was on the
From, like Mama's House.
Carol
and,
Burnett,
Carol Burnett show.
Mama's House, Carol Burnett show. The night the lights went down, the night the lights went out in Georgia. She sang that song. Bring her up. She's got short red
I'm
hair.
gonna look her up right now.
Yeah,
Yeah, you'll recognize her.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, good call. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
yeah.
All right.
So she was married to the guy who dubbed Leon Green's role. She died recently in 2023. Then we have Paul Eddington as Richard Eaton, her husband. Again, a lot of British film and TV, nothing that I was familiar with.
He is very famous for a TV series, in fact, 2 TV series in the UK called Yes Minister and Yes Prime Minister. The closest of which you guys probably have is Veep.
I was just going to say, is it Veep?
It's basically the thing where, the joke is at the end of every episode is that government is all about compromise and not about grandstanding. But it's all done through the civil service and stuff. It's a really funny sitcom, and it kind of inspires a lot of the political comedy that would then come out in the 80s and 90s.
All right, I'll do 2 more here. Rosalind Landor as the young Peggy Eaton. She was also in several things I do know. Star Trek The Next Generation, Matlock Hunter. She played a character called Britt in a movie, Bad Influence, with Rob Lowe and James Spader.
Oh, that's a good movie.
Yeah.
I don't think I saw that.
Then the last one I will say is Eddie Powell, who is actually Christopher Lee's stunt double in several Hammer films. He plays the Goat of Mendez.
Oh, thank God we got his name. And
For sure.
The goat of Mendes.
Mendes.
That's
He was in
okay.
a lot of other things too. Aliens, Indiana Jones, and The Last Crusade, Batman, lots of Bond films.
Stunt guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's roll into this film. Larry, can you set us up with like what the initial premise of this movie is? Like who the Duke and Rex Van? What is Rex's character's name again?
Rex Manning. Oh, that's
Leon?
a whole. No, that's a whole. That's
Rex
a whole,
Van Ryn.
Rex Van Ryn. Rex Manning's a whole different movie. That's Empire
Right.
Records. We're getting crazy.
So Rex and the Count
Count
de Richelieu are concerned about
their
somebody.
friend Simon. They're concerned about their friend Simon.
Yeah.
Which
For some
Simon,
reason.
I don't think I caught this in the movie, but when I read the Wikipedia entry afterwards,
Mhm.
Simon is their dead friend's son, right? So he's almost like
They've raised him. They're
They-
older than him, but they've raised him.
okay,
And like
so,
the nephew.
right. It's
More or
almost
less.
like a ward, like Batman and Robin, okay, all right.
Yeah.
And they haven't heard from him in a while, and they're kind of like, oh, what's up with him? Oh, I
I
don't
hope
know.
he's
I
not with
haven't
some
talked to
Satan
him.
group.
Yeah.
I hope he hasn't gone upstairs and put a giant ornate goat mosaic on the floor. Yeah.
I hope he hasn't painted an observatory onto this house.
Yeah, right.
I hope he can't take a punch.
That's one thing I had to explain to my son who was looking at that scene. I was like, listen, the one bad thing about them remastering films like this is it makes you realize how bad some shit really looks. Like putting that fucking fake observatory out of the house. Like, it doesn't look good at all. Like, sure, it looks fine on a grainy VHS. Like,
Right. But better than the spider.
Oh, I never forget seeing Evil Dead for the first time high def, and you see the original, the Anchor Bay DVD had that big blue square around the moon that they've subsequently now got rid of, thankfully, in Blu-ray releases. No, I think the dome that they use as the superimposed or matte painted on observatory, I think it's the dome from the house in the greenhouse style dome in the house in Rocky Horror, because that Rocky Horror house was used throughout
tons of shit,
Hammer horror stuff. So I've got a feeling that little bit of glass kind of thing that you see
it's a good call
on the side that comes from that Rocky Horror house, because the Rocky Horror house has that big conservatory on the top.
I looked it up halfway through watching this movie just because I didn't remember if they said it at the beginning, but this film takes place in 1929.
Yeah, it's definitely the 20s. You can tell by the MGs.
Yeah. So they figure out that he hasn't been in contact.
Yeah, they haven't. Nobody's talked to him.
Let's go to. He bought a house. Let's go to his house, right?
So the Duke speaks into a piece of velvet in the back.
What the fuck was that? A velvet rope from a movie theater?
Yeah, I'm like, why is he talking into that? The fucking driver's 2 feet away from him. Like, what's he doing? That part always fucking cracked me up.
Maybe there was glass. I don't know.
No, there was no glass. There was just a velvet rope from a stanchion that he just decided to talk into.
Maybe cars were so loud back then that you couldn't hear anyone in the back seat, so you had to
don't
talk.
make excuses for your British friends.
Yeah,
and their wackiness.
For my British friends, who are all way.
Yeah, you guys are all friends. Just that's just the way it works.
Larry, you didn't know this, but John's great grandfather invented the velvet rope communication system, the VRCS, as all Brits know, exists even to this day. When you're in the backseat of a car in England, you pick up a velvet rope and go, "Hey, let's go
to Simon's house.
Let's go to Simon's house."
Yeah. That's why all London cabbies say things like, "You know who I was talking to on the velvet rope in my cab the other day?"
Yeah, exactly. So they drive over to Simon's small abode to check up on him. And what's going on there?
Yeah, they crash a party. Yeah,
they crash a party.
They crash a party of. I think I saw the King of Wakanda in there.
It was definitely
you got the cross-eyed lady.
Yes. What the fuck was up with that?
Yeah. Well, what was weird was one eye was cross-eyed and the other eye was cross-eyed, and I'm like, "What's?"
Yeah.
It was sort of doing this. I don't really understand it.
How do you know where to look? Like, how do you even talk to her? Like,
and they let her drive there. You know what I mean? That's what's incredible.
This party is the United Colors of Benetton, right? Like Larry said, the King of Wakanda, cross-eyed white lady. There's, I think, an Indian gentleman, but there's 13. Yeah.
There was like an Eskimo with a fucking harpoon, a fucking Native American full headdress.
It was the Village People party.
Yeah,
13 of them.
Construction worker.
There was a cop.
Hat.
There was a cop. But yeah, so Rex doesn't get what's going on. But what does happen when they show up is the butler is like, what the fuck are you guys doing here? And then he does go get his master, the gentleman they're looking for, and he's very much like put off that they're there. He's kind of like, sorry.
You can tell he's like, he wants to be friendly, but he's in the middle of some shit right now.
He's getting the stink eye from Charles from
guys. We're trying to raise Satan, and you walk in here without so much as a buy or leave. Come on, get out, sling your hat.
Yeah. No one wants to talk to them as soon as they find out they're not members.
Right.
They all get the cold shoulder at that.
And Christopher Lee very much is.
He does not give a fuck.
He doesn't give a fuck. He's like,
hey, I'm going up to the observatory. He's like, no, you got to leave. No, I'm going upstairs.
Yeah. He gets himself a glass of red wine. He's having a good time. They go upstairs and he goes to the observatory, and the observatory it's all decked out in Satan shit. Let's just be honest.
Yeah.
We get there's like a goat. idol. There's a pentagram drawn on the floor. And then, I don't know about you guys, but I've got a closet with 2 hens in a wicker basket, right?
Yeah.
That's normal.
That's right.
So he knows what's going on.
It's
And
right behind Larry's landline.
Yeah.
he's trying to give Rex a clue, but Rex is kind of like, he doesn't really get it. Now, do they?
I don't think that even by the end of the movie, Rex understands.
Yeah.
I think Rex is just
Yeah.
along for the shenanigans. I don't
Yeah.
think Rex is like,
Rex and the fucking Duke's who is nephew-in-law, whatever his niece's husband, like those two were just like this. None of this is happening.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Did you guys? I just gotta jump forward a little bit just because it's on my mind right now. But in all the shenanigans, there's a point where Rex borrows the niece's nephew's car and destroys it. They never ask about it.
No.
never.
They
no.
never say, "Where's our car?"
It's
Did it
not
look
about
like
the
they
car.
needed that car? Like,
No matter how rich you were, even in 1929, you probably still needed a car.
I'm pretty
You know?
sure they had at least 7 more.
Yeah.
Also, they're clearly the kind of family that, because they know, these people know Christopher Lee, but I don't know if they know Rex Van Ryan. I think but he just
True.
runs out of their house and just goes, "I need to take your car," and just
Yeah.
takes it.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
he's Rex Van fucking Ryan.
Yeah.
Right.
And he can take the car and do whatever he wants with it. He drives it into a tree, like full blown through a wall of smoke into a tree, and then gets out of it casually, shakes it off,
No
and goes for a
seatbelts.
nice
Because there's
stroll.
no seatbelts
seatbelts.
back then.
No.
Fucking
No.
no seat. He would
The
have been,
fucking windshield is only 6 inches tall.
This-
Like,
This is also the family that, again, driving towards the end of the movie. At the end of the movie, they put themselves all in a protective circle against satanic attacks and leave their daughter in her bedroom to sleep
Yeah,
the night
that's
away.
It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Fuck the little blonde
she's just
11-year-old.
gonna ride the giant spider around. Don't worry about it.
So, do they?
Sorry,
now,
what are we doing here? We're protecting ourselves from the Lord of the Damned.
yeah.
And we're just going to leave her. Oh, she'll be fine.
She'll be fine.
Don't worry about it.
It's
She's
all
a
good.
deep sleeper. She's a deep sleeper.
No, Manster, I'm going to ask you, do they leave and come back? Or,
Yes, they do.
okay, so they
So they-
leave.
Isn't this where they take him out? And is this where he punches Simon?
Yes.
Throws him over
Right.
his shoulder.
So
yeah,
they're
like-
up, they're out there, and all of a sudden they know Simon's going to get out of control. So Count
Simon gets
Dooku-
knocked out like 3 times.
Yeah,
in the movie by
Count
different
Dooku
people.
lays him out with. I'm telling you,
Which
the
is the only
lamest
time he
punch I've
punches.
ever seen.
And it's the only time he punches any. Rex takes care of all the rest of the punching.
Yeah,
from
the
here
rest
on
of the
out.
punching is Rex. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So over the shoulder, they leave, and they go back to
To the Duke's
Richelot's house.
Yeah.
Put Simon to bed. They say, "Hey, you need some rest here. Have this protective crucifix or cross." Yeah, and then he goes on to tell Rex all about it, but Rex is having none of it. He's like, "Nah, you're full of shit. None of that's
Yeah.
real."
My favorite line is later in the movie, someone asks, "So Rex, what's going on?" And he goes, "I don't know. Talk to the cat. He'll
Talk to the
explain it. Like, don't worry about it. Talk to Christopher Lee. He's got all the mumbo jumbo. Like, get on with it. You know." I love that.
Rex is clearly the action hero of this
Yes.
film. Yeah.
Oh my God. 3-piece suit Charlie. I love him. Yeah, he's great.
At what point do they go back to the house and encounter the cross-eyed black ghost guy?
All right, so that's like the next step.
Okay.
So as
It's a little problematic, I gotta say.
Right, as Simon is laying in bed, remember the his chain starts choking him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right, and so then the butler comes in, Simon escapes, and the butler comes down, and it's at that point they leave. He and Rex go back to Simon's house and encounter the the black dude in the red nappy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll be honest. As you said, little odd, maybe a little problematic, but that was kind of terrifying. There was
Yeah, the
something
eyes.
about the look of that guy, the eyes,
Yeah,
that
don't
just,
look in the eyes.
yeah, I was creeped out by that scene.
Well, I think it
Sounds
would be
racist
more.
to me. You sound
it would-
racist right now.
a little, a tiny bit racist.
Yeah, you sound racist.
I think they hired the guy because he could do stuff with his eyes. They probably get away with it because at no point do they don't go on and on about his ethnicity or anything like
Right.
that. They don't. He's just meant to be the apparition of a
Right.
demon or a hellish deity or whatever. Because you see 2 more throughout the movie that are of different shapes, different ones are goat,
Sure,
ones whatever. It's better by the end of the film. If they were all like either Indian or African men in wearing nappies, it would be way more racist. But as it is, I feel like he's just one of many like
Iterations of the devil.
It's a good way
Yeah.
to put it. I like that.
I think it's an effective scene. I actually,
Yeah.
It is.
I will remember
Freaky
that.
looking.
Yeah, it was freaky looking. So, Manster, you got a good hold on this. When do we get to the point? Now, we do get to the point where we find out about Tanith as well. Tanith is the second person that is going to be baptized in the name of Satan, along with the
But the count thinks she's already a Satanist
right because
of her name. Yeah.
Right. But
Right.
she's a natural Tanith, not a
Yes.
renamed Tanith.
Right.
Not a dyed Tanith.
Yes.
It's a natural Tanith.
She's
The
natural.
carpet matches the drapes. Or
The
whatever.
Tanith matches the drapes.
Yeah.
Tanith.
So we have a scene where Rex borrows the car from the niece and nephew. There's a pretty good chase.
Oh, no, this is before that. There's that whole thing you're talking about. So the Count goes to consult something. He leaves, right?
He goes to the library.
He
He's
wa-
like,
he
I'm
goes
going
to
to
the
go do a
library.
bunch of research.
Right. He goes to the library.
Now's the time.
And
You
he said,
can't
"Oh, by the way,
prisoners, and
Tanith
I'll go
is
to the
at-
library.
Yeah, and Tanith is. You can find her at this like hotel or something. So that's when Rex goes to pick her up and learns about her real name. Her birth name was Tanith, and from there, I guess they're going to the country at that
Yeah.
point.
And they're both under Charles Gray's thrall, but I feel like Tanith is more of a true believer than Simon is. I feel like Tanith is the one who's constantly being more like...
Simon doesn't really seem very convinced about all this. Even at the beginning, he seemed pretty shaky about his. Whereas Tanith, like, I didn't think they were going to be able to pull her out of that, because I mean, at every fucking chance she gets, she's taken off, and she stole the car at one point. Because fucking Rex decided to just leave it running with her in it. And she just fucking takes off.
He goes in. It's so funny because they go around in a circle, and the little girl goes, "Well, that was a short visit.
That was a
wasn't
short
it?"
visit, yeah.
What he lacks in neck, Charles Gray makes up for in
eyes.
girth,
In eyes.
in penile girth, and so that's why Tanith wants to be around Charles Gray.
I believe that's true.
He took his neck and put it groin
down there. Is it when she's driving and he's chasing her? We get kind of the Obi-Wan Luke moment where Charles Gray's in the rearview mirror, kind of talking to her, like, use the Force, Tanith, and she's just driving as fast as she can. What happens to Rex Van Ryn's windshield? Does he make it opaque with his mind? Because at one point it goes like white, and then that's when he punches through it.
Yeah,
So
it's meant to go cloudy. He's meant to, in the same way that he's also, I think, Gray's eyes that come on the little mirror in the car there, I think he's also making her car go faster than her car ever normally would.
Okay.
So, because he says he will never, ever catch up with you. So no matter what Rex Van Ryn does, no matter how fast he drives, he'll never catch up. And even though he's driving as literally as fast as the cars will go, they decide to block out his windshield, and then they put like a bunch of smoke in front of him as well.
Yeah, right. The smoke.
Yeah, and then that's when he veers off the road, right, hits a tree, and then the car's never spoken of again.
Right.
No, nobody cares about.
I mean,
the
that
car.
chase felt like it was like 60 miles an hour. It was pretty frantic chase from their perspective.
I mean, the second half of it is obviously sped up Benny Hill style, but
for sure.
But I have to say, even early on when it's not sped up, some of the corners they take in those old cars that were not designed like it's not like they have. You know,
when your wheelbase is 2.5 inches, you're not usually going to take a corner that well.
It's a bicycle tire.
Yeah.
All right.
Larry, when do we get to the point where they end up at the rave / Burning Man / baptism? Right? Because they get back together, Rex Van Ryn and the Count get back together, and they determine that this is going to be happening somewhere. So they go and they kind of do a stakeout, right?
Yeah. They somehow quietly, and like John had mentioned earlier, those cars are not quiet, so I don't know how they pulled this one off. But they pull off on like an outdoor rave. I'd been to a few of those in the past. They didn't look much like that. Maybe they did. There was a lot of E and stuff going on. But yeah, they pull up on the outdoor rave and kind of hide behind a rock and just
some
watch.
ferns. That's like the pile of ferns. Because Rex is there earlier
Yeah.
runs away, and then they manage to get right back to the same like little pile of
Right.
Yeah.
Rex had stowed out in some trunk. He hopped a
Yes.
ride in a trunk as they were all going to the rave. And I have to say, seeing this sort of scene, this sort of ritual, those people should have been naked
In the
Yeah,
rave.
in the rave. That was a definite naked satanic.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not
Yeah.
getting that past the
Yeah.
censors in the UK.
No,
you're,
right,
you're-
exactly.
you're lucky that you even got her writhing up against him. There's a wonderful scene where Simon has the perfect Englishman's face where he doesn't want to say, like, could you kindly leave me alone? But at the same time, there's like a woman, there's some like hippie woman in a robe
Right.
writhing up against him. And he stood very stiffly like a British man should do in his brown suit being like, I really don't think this is appropriate. And he's got like that, he's got a face on him that's just like, well, I don't know about this. I don't know that I signed up for writhing. What's going on here?
Now, none of this.
Oh, right.
None of this
None of
doesn't
this,
seem
none of this.
proper.
Yeah.
Yes, none
Nothing
of this.
to see
none of
here.
the
Wink,
other.
wink,
Yeah.
wink,
Move along.
nudge. No.
It's the best face ever. It's great.
No ravishing here, please.
Yeah.
So eventually, as this whole ritual goes on, we get to the point where all of a sudden,
We get the
you know,
goat of Mendez.
right,
Yeah.
like you might go to like Coachella and not know that, like, I don't know, like Kid Rock is going to show up. Here, nobody expected.
Description.
Nobody,
Can we not be mean to the goat of Mendes? Compare him to
No,
Kid fucking
no,
Rock.
nobody
I'd
expected.
much rather have the goat of Mendez show up.
Me too.
Nobody expected the goat of Mendez to show up, but all of a sudden, there he is.
There he is.
He's just a paunchy looking white
Yep.
dude, but he's got a Billy goat head. And this is where Richelieu
Sweet
kind of
beard.
says to him, he's like, that's the goat of Mendez. And Rex is just like, can I punch him?
Yeah. Rex is like, let me at him. Let me at
Let
him.
me at him.
Pulling him back by his three-piece
Yep.
suit. Yeah.
They then decide I don't want to say suicide mission, but let's get in the car
Yeah.
and let's fucking ram the goat of Mendez.
Best
In-
fucking scene ever.
This scene is fucking incredible.
Yeah.
John, take it
The
away.
headlights will throw him off.
Yeah. John,
Oh
give
yeah,
it,
that
give
was
us-
the thing. Is that Christopher Lee's like, damn it! If only we had some lights, which
Yeah.
is hilarious because both of them are lit up very brightly at
Yes.
the front of the scene. But they go, "Oh yeah, we have a car. What the fuck are we thinking? Let's get to the car, turn the lights on, and drive into the thing." My favorite thing here is the little crucifix necklace that Lee has been using. Has more uses in this than the little magnifying necklace in Evil Dead. Like it's like the power of the necklace. It's just good for wiping out any satanic issue. But they decide they're going to drive in to the crowd. Lee is driving. Rex Van
Rex is
Ryn
hanging on the side.
Hanging on the side. Because, of course, these old 1930s cars have about 7 feet out either side, like Chitty Chitty
Right.
Bang Bang.
Yeah, they're like
So we
six.
get-
They're like 6 times wider than the tires.
Yeah.
The fucking platforms on the side.
By the
of
way,
fucking
can we
car.
do Chitty Chitty Bang Bang?
No,
Sure.
that would.
Rex Rex is like hanging on the side, but again, just a steely gaze as they drive through the woods. Lee pulls out like some, a couple of lines. There's that great shot. It's very short, but they're whizzing through the woods. And as they whiz through the woods, Lee is like, may the Lord of the power of the Almighty, like, well, whatever. And he's saying like a big spiel as they run in. Rex jumps off the car. Tosses the crucifix at the goat of Mendez. That blows him up, disappears him. Then he just jumps in the crowd and starts just punching out.
He starts
mothers.
punching.
Like, he's just,
He is bashing hippies like
Yes.
as only Eric Cartman could dream of. He's in this crowd. It's like Midsommar with Rocky mixed
Yeah.
together. He's just punching.
Nobody's fighting back.
No,
No,
well, they're hippies.
flying.
They're
John Wayne used to watch this to get off because he just liked the idea of people punching hippies.
he is just knocking people out left and right. Mikado disappears right at this point, and
He gets punched out. Doesn't he punch him in the face?
Does he
I'm
punch
pretty
him in the
sure he
face?
gets punched. I'm
Because-
pretty
Punches
sure he gets
Mikado in the face, and then they drive
Everybody
off.
gets punched.
Everybody gets punched, and then they retreat back to the nephew's house, right? And
Yes.
Yeah.
this is where
Yeah,
they
they
retreat
go
to the
back.
nephew's house, and they wake everybody up, and they say, "Hey, look, we got to tell you something. Satan's real. He's a goat, or a cross-eyed black guy, but he's
Not
real."
sure. He's
And
one of them.
we've had a lot of issues with him in the last day. Rex is in love with one of them, and we need to chill here if you don't mind. And Vicki Lawrence is like, cool.
Whatever.
And
Yeah.
the husband's kind of like a little bit more like, well, we were going to have
Husband's like, I don't
tea.
buy it.
We
Husband's
were
like, I
going
don't
to
buy
have
it.
tea later on.
Tea.
But he's kind
Will
of...
it disrupt my tea and the
Yes.
fact that we have a small daughter that possibly shouldn't be confronted with lots of Satan?
They just chill at the house. They're kind of like chilling at the house, waiting. And then all of a sudden, Mikado shows up. And he comes and he says to the butler, I'd like to see, the lady or the man of the house. And, they know, right? They've been told who this is, but, Vicki Lawrence is like, come on in, sit in the parlor. Let's talk for a little bit.
She's enamored.
Lee also explained that, because him and Rex were exposed to, the devilish goings on the evening before, that they are still susceptible.
Right.
Whereas Paul Eddington and his wife, the redheaded woman, have never come across Satan, so therefore they are the most available to like take on what Mikado's putting down. Is that
Okay.
right? That's basically what.
Yeah,
he
that's
explained.
exactly it. Yep.
I feel like I
Yeah.
missed that line, but
They're the least compromised.
Compromise. Thank you. That was the word I was looking
Well,
for.
guess what? Didn't work. Mikado just immediately goes into that blue eye fucking
Yes.
gaze, and he just starts to work his magic on her.
I was fucking doing stuff he was telling.
Yeah, I choked myself. I was like, fuck, it's over.
Yeah. I'm in the middle of watching this thing. All of a sudden, my one hand's around my neck. I'm working a nipple real hard.
Yeah.
I'm twisting the nipple, and I'm like, "Oh, daddy!" And I'm like, "What the fuck?"
I'd run out to my neighbors who have chickens and goats and were looking for things to just randomly sacrifice.
So but she breaks out of it, right, John? Like she kind of like wakes herself up in the middle
Peggy,
of this.
Peggy does that. Remember, the girl just bursts
Peggy
into the
snaps
room
him out of
saying
it, yeah.
something and snaps the whole thing.
Right. Now, we talked earlier about the scene in the observatory with the problematic demon, how that was really effective. There's a line in this scene I thought was really effective. It's after they break out of it and after she's like, "Please leave our house, sir." He's leaving and he says to her, "Something is coming tonight." That line was chilling as fuck.
Yeah, that was a great line. It's like, I won't be back, but something will.
Something, not someone, something. And that line in particular actually fucking kind of chilled me out pretty good. I like that.
What it turns out is it's lots of bad special effects, even for 1968. What's coming tonight is lots of bad special effects.
So Mikado splits. Larry, where do we go from here? Is this where we get into the circle and
Next thing you know, everybody's lying down, touching heads, the top of their heads. Not, they're just they're in a circle on the ground, and they're all laying down on pillows, like with their heads touching. And Simon, he's like, I got to get out of here. He's like, I need some water. He's like, there's water right next to you, Jack. Fucking stop fucking around.
And then Eddington in the blazer is all like, well, I can't have tea lying down. I'm going to get up and get some tea. What's going on?
Yeah. Everybody's trying to leave, and Christopher Lee's like, would you fucking just lay down and listen to me? So what comes first? Does the spider come first? I think the spider comes first.
The water turns into like swamp water.
Oh, yeah. He's like, this is disgusting. Like,
then the lights flicker, and then
it gets cold, because that's another thing that always happens. When they were up in the observatory, it got cold as well.
Yep.
Right. And then the spider shows up, the tarantula.
Right. Which is at some times a normal sized spider, and then at other times some oddly translucent
weird projected. It was weird.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at some point,
it looked like something that Greg Brady would try to scare his brothers and sisters with, like on a Halloween episode of the Brady Bunch.
I think what they did was scratched the image of a spider into the film.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very crude early superimposing, basically.
Yeah.
And if you go back to that era in the UK filmmaking, whether it's Hammer Horror, the Carry On films, which was sort of end of the pier kind of sex romp series that were made in the 60s and 70s, or even very early Doctor Who, special effects not a strong suit in the UK, which is weird because you only have to go another 8 or 9 years and everyone is coming to the UK to make movies because of the special effects in the studios and whatever. Star Wars is made there, Indiana Jones is made there, etc., etc. But for some reason, 10 years earlier, they're like, just film a tarantula at London Zoo, take that footage, kind of vaguely superimpose it on this scene, and then we'll get away with it. I think the step they missed was they should have made a miniaturized set, at least the corner of the set that the
Right.
tarantula's meant to crawl out of.
Yeah.
'Cause all
Because
they
it was
do-
clearly different sizes in
Yeah.
different scenes. Yeah.
Well, because what they try and do is that forced perspective of having the tarantula very close up on the back of the room, but you
Didn't
still look
do
at it and just go, it's just a tarantula on the
It
floor.
doesn't work at
Yeah.
all.
It
It
didn't.
doesn't
do
work
So-
at all. No.
So then you hear Peggy like from behind the door calling, and they're like, "Holy shit, we completely forgot our fucking tiny daughter is in the house." Like,
Yeah.
you know, and they're like, "He's fucking Dooku's like, you can't." I love that we're calling him Dooku now.
Dooku.
It's like, you can't fucking leave. And then he's like, it's not even her, and they're not listening. And then Peggy comes in, and I'm like, fuck, she's gonna ride that spider. And unfortunately,
Saddle
I
that
was-
bitch up. and
God, I
take
was
it out.
hoping she would fucking lasso that motherfucker and just climb on, but she didn't.
Also, don't they say we've cleared out the drawing room, and then they go into the drawing room, and it's this enormous fucking room? You're like,
Yeah.
who cleared it out, and how long did it take?
When did this happen?
This furniture that was in there in order to fill the room properly was probably like 12 foot long. It's insane.
So then the spider disappears and Peggy disappears, and they realize that they were never there. Mokata was fucking around. Then the horse shows up.
The winged,
Death.
the
Yeah.
winged, yeah.
All right.
Oh fuck! I forgot about the winged horse. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was the whole point. That was
the Angel of Death. The Angel of Death shows up, and what we need to remember is that the Angel of Death cannot come with no price.
Right.
Like,
When the Angel of Death shows up, something has to die.
Something's
something
dying.
has to die. Christopher Lee yells. So Christopher Lee says, I've got some words that I can say, but everybody might die. This might fuck up everyone. And they're like, just say the fucking words. And as they keep showing the same scene of the horse going like this and then
Back and
doing
forth.
it in
back and
reverse,
forth.
and then I'm like, okay, I get it. So finally, Christopher Lee yells the words, and oddly enough, for all of his warning, nothing happened except for the fucking horse disappeared. He said something, "Oh, time will stop, and there'll be
It's
much
across the
wriggling and
street.
gnashing of teeth." But it didn't happen. Like nothing happened except the horse disappeared. Until they realize, okay, now we can fucking leave the circle. Richard can have his tea. Everything's going to be fine. Oh, but fucking Tanith is dead. Bummer. Like, and that's when we find out that the Angel of Death cannot be summoned without taking somebody back with them. So,
And Rex is like, I am getting late, so we need to fix this.
We gotta reverse this.
What
right now.
are the other words that you can say to bring her back so I can
to
fucking
get my dick wet?
Much like Superman, Rex flies around the Earth counterclockwise until Lois Lane gets sucked back up from the earthquake. So, okay, and then also is the little girl is then kidnapped.
That's right, the girl. So after the crip walking horse, they realize not only is Tanith, I keep wanting to say Tabitha, not only is Tanith dead, but their daughter is gone.
Yeah, and Tanith was the sacrifice. She was the devil's bride. So now they need a new sacrifice.
Devil's concubine.
They take the daughter. Yeah. So the daughter goes, and
at some point they revive Tanith, and she says some things to them.
They had a seance.
Yes.
Yeah.
They have a seance, and Tanith
she speaks through Vicki Lawrence.
Vicki Lawrence.
Yes. Yeah. Correct.
So Tanith speaks through Vicki Lawrence.
Yeah.
And then
kind of tells them what's going on. Kind of gives them the.
Also, let's point out
the winged serpent. That's right.
Doesn't she say in that while she's like in the seance that she's in love with Rex? Doesn't that come out at that point? Yeah. You've known each other for 46 minutes. Like,
yeah, and a lot of that you were worshiping Satan, which I'm not sure that I want to.
You're worshiping Satan, or sleeping, or driving in a fugue state. Like
that shows the true
when
power
of Rex. When did you fall in love with Rex?
Yeah, I like that Mikado uses his psychic powers and supernatural powers, basically like text message, because they go from all the devil worshippers are in the woods, so he's clearly been able to tell everyone like meet at this clearing in the woods. Yeah. And then when they go back to get the daughter who's about to be sacrificed, they're all in some other building in the basement of some building. And how quickly did they all, like, he was just like, right, everyone get in their cars and meet in the basement of the building that we always meet. Like, it seemed like he was able to corral people very quickly.
Way too fast.
He's essentially got like a group message for Satanists. Like,
well, let's not forget that back in the 60s, you would have had to have either, like, I mean, yes, okay, maybe you could have picked up a phone, like a rotary phone. Well, no, because it's set in the 20s.
The 20s.
Right?
This is the 20s. Yeah. Smoke signals.
Yeah, you're talking about like either writing letters,
telegram, like a telegram,
Just telepathy,
singing telegram. The Satanist gathering is going to be at Rex's house.
Love Mikado.
So, like Lloyd said, she does give the clue about the winged serpent, and that's when Rex is like, "I know that fucking winged serpent. That was the gate ornament at fucking Simon's house, right?"
Yeah.
So he's like, "We got to go back to Simon's house." So he goes back, and they're just about to carve, they're going to carve the little girl up like a fucking Thanksgiving turkey.
Yeah.
But he busts in and he starts
wait a
doing his thing, right?
This has always been one of my favorite parts because they get in there and Christopher Lee is like, "Fucking everybody follow me. Got this shit on lockdown. Nobody does anything until I fucking say so." And then all of a sudden he's like, I got nothing. Like, I can't.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
I got nothing.
They're
I
like,
can
"Do
stand here on
something.
the stairs. That's
Do
it.
something." He's like, "No, we're just going to have to watch this girl get stabbed." Like,
We need someone who can punch. That's what
yeah.
we need.
Like,
Yeah.
they're like, he's like, fucking Rex is like, "Say those goddamn words again." He's like, "Nope.
Can't do it.
Negative. Can't do it."
The only
Sorry.
this was the only bit I didn't understand, so maybe you guys can help me out. But suddenly into the fray walks Sarah Lawson, Mary Eaton, and just starts turning the tide, right? Turning it around. Like suddenly she's free to just go up to the altar and take the little girl. She people part out of her way. Like everyone's scared of her.
Was she being possessed by Tanith at that point?
I didn't understand
Right.
anything from this point to the explanation at the end that time had run back. When Christopher Lee, says basically that it's like somehow they turned time back.
So
Because-
it was Peggy who ended up saying the words this time. So Chris couldn't say the fucking words. It doesn't say why, because remember, I'm not wrong. He was like, "Fucking follow me. This is my show. Everybody hang back until," and then he's like, "Nope, I got nothing." I've always took that as it always seemed to me he knew too much about the evil side of this. That I think that he dabbled in it in the past.
Oh yeah, he'd been to a few orgies,
which made him realize that he couldn't stop this because he had done too much evil. It's just me. This is just my opinion because I don't know if it was ever really explained anywhere. He couldn't say it, but I think Tanith, the possessed Tanith, told Peggy the words to say, right? And Peggy says them, and then all of a sudden, they're like back to normal. Like everything's fucking gone. Tanith is alive again.
Not just is everything gone, but it's like a church.
Divine retribution takes place and just zaps everything away.
Because
you mean Marie, not Peggy, right? Marie.
Right.
Yeah.
Because maybe she was pure when she said the words. It actually reversed time, brought Tanith back, and then the Angel of Death took his sacrifice, which was Mikado, instead of taking one of the people they liked.
But yeah, Marie is able to walk down. Everyone parts out of her way like they're afraid. She takes the girl off the altar. Yep. They say some words. I think Rex hits a few people at that point.
Oh yeah,
Rex definitely hits some people.
Yeah.
Rex hits.
I've lost track of how many people Rex
punches
hit.
everyone in the movie except
there is a
Chris is the only person who doesn't punch.
There is a mid-credit scene of Rex just punching people throughout England.
Yeah. I want to see
the original mid-credit scene.
Yeah.
He runs into Buckingham Palace and takes a swipe of Prince Philip.
He while the Who is live at Leeds, he jumps on stage and punches Pete Townsend right in the face. It's awesome.
Yeah. Rex is punching Hell's Angels at fucking Altamont.
Dude, you went right where my head was at. I was about to do that exactly. Yeah, definitely. The Isle of Wight Festival, Jimmy's playing on stage. Rex just fucking...
Yeah.
Punching
He's
hippies.
burning his guitar and Rex is punching hippies.
Yeah.
So Christopher Lee, the Duke, kind of explains everything we just said. He said, the angel took Mikado, and time is reversed for us, so nobody is lost, and we get kind of the Universal monster movies ending where the credits just kind of drop right there.
Like, it's time to end. Let's just fucking drop the credits.
Yeah.
Well, also because they put everything up front. In older movies, especially Hammer movies, they always have like a credit sequence right at the beginning for like 20 minutes.
Yeah. It's literally like the end of the movie, but at the beginning of the movie. Like,
yes.
It shows everything. Like, thanks to the town of fucking North Binghamshire, like whatever.
Yeah, North Binghamshire. That's where my dad's from.
That's where my family's from. That's where my
My
family.
dad's from Binghamshire.
North Binghamburn, whatever.
I spent a week there one night. Yeah.
I caught a fish this big. Yeah. So the credit, but I did love those opening credits. How satanic! I mean,
Yeah, they're fantastic. Also,
So-
Baphomet on the front there,
yes,
full on boobs,
full on,
full on huge rack
Yeah,
that Baphomet has.
That is a Black Sabbath approved credit
Yeah.
sequence.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Like
Yeah.
that, Tony Iommi, fucking
It's a
every
lot.
lyric he wrote came from watching that fucking opening credit sequence.
You
One-
know that the producer was calling people up being like, if we can't get tits in this picture, put it in the opening credit sequence.
Yeah,
You know
it's
what
this
I mean?
hammer for God's sakes.
Yeah. Although at one point, and I was almost going to mention it earlier during the orgy sequence, when Simon's being writhed on by a random hippie woman, a random hippie guy comes over
Yeah.
and just pours goat's blood,
Yeah.
on Tanith's breast. He just kind of goes, "Here, have that." Boom.
Yeah.
You know, like
That's
it's not a
really
baptism.
That's as hammer as this movie got.
Right,
exactly,
that
yeah.
fucking sequence right there.
Rex
Although I
is-
have to say, when he sacrifices the goat, the shot of the bowl and the just the squirting blood going into the bowl, that's pretty cool. Like,
Yeah.
that was good. That
Yeah.
was
And
good.
you don't get to see the goat, but you do see the crowd reaction to that.
All right. So before we rate this film as we normally do, as we mentioned, we have John here. John has a bunch of stuff going on, and he's also Larry. What did you just open, Larry? What the fuck was that? Hold on. Let me do that. What did you just break a bird's neck?
Yeah. The crowd's getting rambunctious. We've got to calm these
All right.
fuckers down now. Yeah.
Let's see if Larry can keep it quiet this time. We're going to throw it over to John. John's going to talk about his awesome film endeavors and some of his writing and other things too, and kind of tell you a little bit about himself, because John will be joining us quite a bit here on The Pint. We love to have great guests on. So John, and also John, I want to know, where in England are you originally from?
North
Okay.
Bingham.
North
Binghamshire.
Binghamshire, yes.
South North Binghamshire.
There is a place in the UK called Lower Piddle, and I wish I was from Lower Piddle, but I'm not from Lower Piddle. I was born just outside Birmingham in a small town called Solihull, which is sort of a commuter belt town to Birmingham. Then we moved to Manchester, and we lived in another commuter belt town, and then we finally moved down south. My accent is predominantly from what they call the home counties, which is Hampshire, Surrey, and Sussex, along the southern border of the southern coast of the UK. And I grew up predominantly after about the age of 7, living about 45 minutes south of London. So that's kind of where I grew up. Although I did go to university right in Buckinghamshire, where the studios, Hammer Studios, were for a long time. So, and my film school university that I went to was affiliated with that studio. So that was awesome. As for me, I've been a film fan since I was very, very young. I was first a huge comedy nerd. Obviously Monty Python and, Beyond the Fringe and Not the 9 O'Clock News and Blackadder and all that kind of British stuff, but also all the American stand-up stuff, I Love Lucy and Phil Silver Show and all that stuff. So I grew up with a pretty transatlantic love of pop culture movies. And then by the time I got to high school, they were already teaching stuff like, Bukowski and Kerouac and Hemingway and things like that. So it wasn't all just English. It wasn't all just Bronte and Shakespeare and Conan Doyle and stuff. I got a pretty good smattering of both sides of the Atlantic. I've just always loved movies, always loved horror, always loved comedy, and started a website called aftermoviediner.com. Started off as a blog in like 2010 and became more of a sort of realized website in 2011. We've been doing the After Movie Diner podcast on and off. We're not particularly regular. We have about 1 or 2 episodes a month at this point, but we still do it. We're still limping along doing the podcast. For the longest time when I lived in New York, we actually did it in a diner after a movie. So we used to go to a diner and actually record it while we were talking about the film we'd just seen. But obviously nowadays I do it via Zoom or Skype or whatever. But that's still going. So head over to aftermoviediner.com if you're interested in interviews, film writing. I've interviewed people like Peter Weller and Michael Ironside and Steve Guttenberg and people on that side. So that's kind of cool. The reason why I bring up After Movie Diner, though, is more importantly, my friend Jim Wallace, who I've known since I was 6 years old and by luck would have it, ended up moving to New York, right across the road from me, started writing Hammer reviews for the website. And every couple of weeks, he would write a new Hammer review. And he wrote all 60, whatever's considered the 65 horror movies that Hammer made. Because Hammer made other stuff. They made sci-fi and drama and war movies and comedies and things, but they're predominantly known for their horror stuff. He reviewed all 65 of the Hammer horror films in a character. So in England, we have pubs, and we call them pub gobshites. I don't know what you call over here the guy who sits at the bar, kind of the Norm or Cliff character who kind of sits at the bar and just always has innocuous stories that everyone's like, who invited this guy? You know, that person?
Call him a drunk.
The town drunk.
Yeah.
We call them pub gobshites, but we collected all 65 Hammer horror reviews by the bloke down the pub, we called it, into a book, which is available. So I wanted to pimp the book. It's called A Bloke Down the Pub Bangs On About Hammer Horror. And it's really good because even if you haven't seen the movie, because it's written in a character, and because each review, along with reviewing the movie, is also sort of commentary on British movie making. It's also comedy because it's got this kind of character flavor to it. And I can't think of any other, I mean, apart from stuff like Joe Bob Briggs or whatever, where he sort of plays up to his character a little bit, and some of the horror hosts that you guys have, I can't think of another like review book that is in a character that could just be read whether you have any frame of reference to the movies or not, because he pretty much explains it well in each thing. So that is available on Amazon right now. A Bloke Down the Pub Bangs On About Hammer Horror from J.E.A. Wallace. So I wanted to mention that. Thank you for letting me pimp that book on this episode. Aside from that, you can also visit my movie store, Be Kind Movie Vault, in New Milford, Connecticut, on the lower level of the Hunt, which is on 20 Bank Street in New Milford. We're also on eBay, Be Kind Movie Vault on eBay. And I sell VHS horror stuff, DVDs, Blu-rays, posters, collectibles, things like that. So Be Kind Movie Vault and aftermoviediner.com. Thanks so much for having me on this episode. It was tons of fun. And the last statement I want to make on this movie is that I'm not big on remakes. I'm not a big fan on remakes. But I think if they went back to the original novels, I think Dennis Wheatley's books are primed for someone to do modern. I think they would play very well in sort of modern reiterations of them. And I would love to see a studio pick that up.
So check John's stuff out. Check that book out. I'm going to check that book out for sure. I'm actually very interested in that. And also, if you have been to any of the last couple of Larry's Connecticut Cult Classic shows, John's the guy that's been down at the bottom selling you his VHS tapes and other cool things. So you got a name and a face together. Manster, I got to ask you real quick. Is it possible that this John is Sir John in disguise? Doesn't he kind of, do you see it? Do you see it?
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. You look like our old buddy John, our old co-host. Yeah. If he had the long, you almost like if you pulled your beard off right now, and we found out you were
it's attached, but
we found out you were John Johnson. I'd be like, that makes sense. Right. It all makes
less
sense.
Curmudgeon-y.
Much less curmudgeon-y.
Oh no, I was on good behavior on this show. I'm normally very curmudgeon-y.
Oh well, then it might be John. All right, well let's get to it. Let's rate this fucking thing.
Little Hand says it's time to rock and roll.
Bring the noise.
Now, Larry, as everybody knows, it's a 0 to 5 scale, quarter and half scale optional. But on Scary Larry episodes, you give us what you want, it to be based on, not a star system. But what are we?
I can't
what
wait
are we doing?
to hear this.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, Lloyd, it's not going to be crazy. We got to rate this on 0 through 5 goats of Mendez's.
Goats of Mendez.
Okay. I thought you were going to maybe go with spiders, but
No.
All right.
No, nobody can contain a spider of that size because nobody knows what its real size is.
The rules of the game are Larry always goes last because it's his namesake episodes. So let's have the Manster go first. Manster, what do you give on a scale of 0 to 5 goats of Mendez's 1968's The Devil Rides Out, a.k.a. The Devil's Bride?
Goats of Mendez's. I love it.
Doesn't really roll off the tongue, does it?
No, but it feels right for some reason. I like the Hammer stuff. What I have seen, I love it. Pays a nice attention to like the period detail of the time. Christopher Lee is suave and not so punchy in this one, but I like him as a hero rather than a villain. I'm totally used to seeing him as a villain, so I like that. Charles Gray, the malevolent Makata, is sinister and superb and necklace, and it's great. I like the the strength of the atmosphere, the exploration of the occult stuff, the rituals. I don't know, for somehow, although they weren't naked, it felt real. It felt kind of real to me. The special effects, you know what? They don't age well. I don't think they aged well in 1970. But I don't know. It's kind of fun. It's something to remember. And I think the film is definitely a worthwhile watch. If you're a fan of classic horror films, not modern horror films, but I think you'll like this. I think it'll pull you in. It's well crafted and atmospheric. One other thing, and I don't like remakes, but I think I would watch this remake for sure. So I'm glad that John brought that up.
Yeah,
I'm
if you
give it.
he went back to the book. You know what I mean? Right, like he did with The Thing or whatever. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Thanks. I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5. All right. Now, something Larry had brought up for our little ratings moment here is he kind of said, Larry, right? Like, what do you think like a Gen Z or a young horror fan would think of these Hammer movies that we're going to do? And we're going to do this on every episode to see if maybe our thoughts on what younger people would think of these movies change with the movies. Now, this is the first one we're talking about. This is 1968, and it's kind of a slow burn. It's kind of a not a whole lot of killing and stuff like that. It's more of a like just a vibe going on. But you give this 4 from your own perspective.
Yeah.
What do you think? Maybe someone, like your middle kid's age or around there would think of a movie like this.
All right. So first of all, let me re-say my rating. It's 4 goats out of 5 goats.
Okay, 4 goats out of 5 goats. Fair.
If my kids could make it through, which I severely doubt that they could make it through the whole movie, but I think they might end up kind of maybe enjoying it. Maybe See,
I don't think
give it a 2.5 maybe, but I don't think they would make it.
So then it can't be a 2.5. Like,
yeah, but
if you got to watch it to rate it, if you can't get all the way through, you know what I mean?
I don't think my kids will make it all the way through.
Okay.
And that's the answer. Yep. But I feel like if they were able to, they might appreciate it.
Let's go over to John. John, what do you give this film? And then what do you think the young horror fans of today would give this film?
So when I rate a film, I find it very difficult to rate a film entirely out of all films that have ever been made. Like
right.
it's impossible. So I tend to, if I'm doing a Hammer horror film, I tend to rate it within Hammer films. So that's just a caveat to my Goats of Mendes rating. I would probably give it on Letterboxd. I actually gave it 5 Goats of Mendes. I'm going to give it 4.5 because I think it probably does lose a half a Goat of Mendes on the special effects, just because I feel like had they shot one more weekend, if they'd taken like 2 more days to just do something, the technology was around at the time that they probably could have just sharpened that up and made that a bit better. Saying that, what I loved about The Devil Rides Out compared to a lot of Hammer films is it's a very modern paced movie. It's very fun. It never lets up. Like, as long as you're going with the plot. No, there's not a lot of gore or violence necessarily, or even sex. But from the get-go, it's like, oh, Simon's devil worship. We're going to stop him worshiping the devil. We're going to go here. We're going to go there. There's car chases. There's punching. There's, it's got a lot of pace. Whereas normally in a Hammer movie, the first 40 minutes is just, well, there's a bunch of, people in Romania hanging around a wood, and they've got to kind of figure out what the monster is. You know what I mean? Like, it normally is more of a slow burn, and there's lots of people in costumes kind of running around mud huts and things. Whereas in this, it's just like, nope, Simon is a devil worshiper, and we got to stop it, and away we go. So I really appreciate that about it. I really appreciate the pace. I really appreciate the performances. I think the performances are fantastic. I think some of the dialogue, some of the soliloquies, some of the monologues that they give in the piece are incredible. As I've said before, I love the punching and everything that Rex Van Ryn does in the movie. So that's where it gets its 4.5. It probably loses half, as I say, for the special effects, because I really just wish that they had tweaked it a little bit and just made it just a little bit better. I'm not going to suggest that anyone Lucas the shit out of it and put a bunch of CGI special effects in it, but I would welcome a remake, as I said, of the book rather than of this movie. But as I say, I'm a big fan of Hammer horror films, but I equate Hammer horror, and this will move on to like the Gen Z thing. So I equate Hammer horror with like, and Universal horror with like early music. Whenever you're born, whether you're born in the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, whenever you were born, you're faced with the music that exists right there, but you've also got your parents' like music collection, right? Most people kind of go, all right, well, I'll listen to Led Zeppelin or Dylan or the Beatles or whatever that came from their parents' collection, as well as music today. But at a certain point, when you get into music, you go, well, okay, where did all this come from? And you go back to blues, or you go back to classical, or you go back to jazz, or you go back to whatever it is where the kind of informed, or maybe you're into heavy metal and you go, well, I want to listen to Led Zeppelin. Maybe Led Zeppelin is your early thing. People tend to do that with music. I would strongly encourage people to do it with movies. I asked the question at the beginning about how Hammer played in the US, and you know, it didn't really. There wasn't a lot of Hammer, and yet every generation since 1975 has taken up the horror movies that we all talk about: Halloween, The Thing, Texas Chainsaw, whatever. Those have had resurgences every single decade. Those have never kind of gone out of fashion. And I would urge people, look at Hammer, look at Universal, look at Herschel Gordon Lewis, look at some of those earlier horror icons and pioneers, in order to understand where all this other stuff comes from. Because the guy who wrote this, like I said, without him writing I Am Legend, you don't get Night of the Living Dead. And if you love zombie movies, you owe it to yourself to watch some of the movies like Plague of the Zombies by Hammer, where some of this stuff came from. And if you're not doing it, I just don't feel like you're getting the full breadth. You don't have to like it, but you should get the full breadth of where your passion lies, I think. And so that's a long-winded round of saying that I think the right Gen Z person, the right Gen Z who's like, I'm on this path for the long haul. I want to know about horror. I want to know about acting. I want to know about filmmaking. And British filmmaking is very easily accessible because it's the same language. It's like Australian exploitation stuff's very accessible. It's the same language. It's the same kind of genre films that you make in the US. So I would hope that there are Gen Z out there or Gen Ys out there who are, I'm going to give this a chance. And if they gave it a chance, would probably, to go to Manster's point, probably give it like a 2.5, 3. I think the problem there is, like you say, getting the kid to actually sit down and watch it. You never know. Once kids have blown through all the 80s and 90s horror, maybe they'll have a taste for what came before. I think a kid could get a lot out of this if they sort of put their modern perspective a bit to the background. But I'm afraid that they probably wouldn't even get far enough into it. So I'll still hover around like the 2.5, just as a sort of historical piece. They are truly interested in horror, then they owe it to themselves to cherry pick a few Hammers and a few Universals and a few Herschel Gordon Lewises and other stuff.
All right. If you get the right kid who is interested truly in kind of the historical aspect of this being an older horror movie and going back, somebody, my nephew, Ash, is a big movie fan. He's 16 years old. I could see him watching this movie and giving this like a 3.5 or a 4, because he's very interested in, you know, like they always use that term, old soul. He's into like learning about that kind of stuff, and viewing that kind of stuff. I think a typical kid who's just looking for film entertainment would give it a 1 or 1.5. It would be boring or lame, unfortunately, because it is older to a certain point. And not even just kids are guilty of that. I've been guilty of that my whole life. I was born in 1975. So there's a point, I don't know where, like maybe 50s films or 40s films that I'm not as familiar with, because in my mind, oh, that's old. I could watch a Star Wars. Why would I watch, this?
Right.
Why would I watch this? For my rating, I give this a 3.5. I think this is a pretty damn entertaining movie. I like Christopher Lee a lot. Rex Van Ryn is my spirit animal now. Just punching, all the way across, England. A couple of really creepy moments, some bad effects, sure. But you mentioned it, John, and me and Lloyd talked about it a few times. Recently we did Army of Darkness, and we had talked about how when we had seen Evil Dead 2, which we had seen before, when Larry showed it at Cult Classics, we were talking about how great that movie is because it gets right to it. There's no bullshit. There's the credits maybe, and then all of a sudden Ash is fighting Deadites in the woods and all that stuff's happening. This movie gets right into it. Rex Van Ryn pilots his fucking plane to meet up with his buddy. He thought they were going to Applebee's, and then all of a sudden they're entrenched in satanic hijinks. And then the whole movie is just car chase, punches. Satan shows up, Mikado shows up, mesmerizing, little girls in danger, tarantula, boom, 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 boom. There's a lot going on here, and I appreciated that. So I'm going to give it 3.5 goats and Mendes. Where I maybe lose it a little bit is there are a couple of creepy moments, but so this is 1968, and then just 5 or 6 years later, The Exorcist comes out, and I feel like there's a very big jump in terror, right? Like The Exorcist terrorizes me and horrifies me. And this movie, there's just something, and again, 2 different filmmakers, 2 different scripts, but I just feel like something happened in the water between those 2 areas to horror films where they just kind of upped the ante a little bit. And this was not quite there yet. So I'm going to
this comes out the same year as Rosemary's Baby, just to put it in context.
Okay.
Which is pretty fucking scary.
Okay.
Yeah,
I've never seen Rosemary's Baby, so I can't draw that line.
Yeah.
Okay. Larry, you're the last word. What do you got?
Yeah, being the last word, just means, like you said, that everybody has said everything that that I had on deck to say. Like I said at the beginning, when people start talking about Hammer, you immediately start talking about Dracula, Curse of the Werewolf, The Mummy, the Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed, all of those classic Universal kind of remakes. Devil Rides Out is one that usually comes up a little later in the conversation. Somebody's like, oh, you know what else is really fucking good? But it's never the first one. But to me, like I said earlier, it's a top 3 Hammer film for me. This is one of the best. Like you guys said, John, you said it starts off right away with the fucking plane. I think it starts right away with those credits. I mean, as soon as those opening credits come in and fucking tits and Baphomet on the screen and you're like, what the fuck am I in for? I'll give it to you. You're right. It never terrifies. It's genuinely creepy is a better word than scary. There are some moments where it's like, whoa, a scene that we didn't talk about was right before Mikado's about to stab Peggy, and the Duke is like, in the name of God, you won't do that, or something like that. And he says, never in the name of God. It's like fucking, that's pretty deep, pretty heavy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of deep, heavy talk in this, mostly from Charles Gray and Chris Lee. Charles Gray, man, his performance in this cannot be overstated. He is fantastically creepy in this movie. He plays Mikado perfectly. If you know him only as the criminologist in Rocky Horror Picture Show, watch this for a fucking different take on Charles Gray. Not a lot of blood, but still a really suspenseful movie. Great story, and I've always loved seeing Christopher Lee be the hero. Right. I mean, we're all used to him being the villain, from Dracula down to Count Dooku, down to Willy Wonka's dad, which he was a villain in that, right? Didn't he let his son leave because he didn't want him to eat candy? It's like, the fuck out of here, kid. He's always the bad guy. And, like I said before, he'd petitioned Hammer to get this licensing, to get this movie made. And he wanted to be the hero. And he was fucking great, man. Like we said, good looking guy. No reason why he couldn't have been the hero his whole career. Not taking nothing away from him as Dracula or him as all these bad characters, because he's great at that too. And you guys mentioned a remake. Christopher Lee, up until his later years, had said that he wishes that they would remake it with today's technology, and he would still love to play the Duke. He wanted to redo this movie. He wanted to make it scarier because he knows the source material. He knows what it could have been. It would suck to see one without Chris Lee, but I'd still be there for a remake of this movie. I've never read the book, but I've heard it's even creepier, so I'd be down. For me, on the old Hammer scale, this gets 4.5 goats of Mendez. It's nearly a perfect movie. If I'm taking away anything, it's probably the same thing. It's the effects, just kind of, I'm okay with bad effects, but once they take me out of a scene, I'm like, all right, that goddamn spider, man. like you could have done a little bit better.
The horse is fine, but the spider is just the one.
Yeah,
it's really missing link.
It's really bad. You said a couple more days of filming. I'll just say a couple more hours in post.
Yeah.
Right.
Really wouldn't have taken much to make that look a little bit better.
2,000 more quid.
Yeah.
Just bring the chroma key down just a little so the spider isn't purple.
Yeah. So now from the Gen Z perspective, I'm 51, so it's a long time ago for me. But I got kids. I tried to get Owen and Jalen to watch this. They were like, no, too old. Then they wouldn't even try. But I do get to talk to a lot of younger kids at our shows. You come to our shows, you see there's a lot of early 20s, even some teens. I talk to a lot of younger kids when I'm hanging out at the archive or whatever. I think the ones that would give it a chance would be able to see past the kind of hamminess of the performances, right? The performances are a little over the top, but hey, man, it's the 60s. It's just how it was. It's what acting was back then. I think, some of them, maybe the lack of gore would be a little sad for them, but I think that they could get past that. I think the story, the allure of Christopher Lee, they know who Christopher Lee is, would be enough to give them a fairly positive experience. I'll hang out about 2.5, 3 for what, for a kid to give this a shot. I think they would enjoy it. I think, it wouldn't surpass, some whatever today's favorite Nicolas Cage fucking craziness is for them, but I think they would have a good experience with it.
Folk horror's had a bit of a resurgence a little bit. You've got The Witch and Gwen and Midsummer and some other ones where you could try and maybe crowbar it in and go, hey, this is like an early folk horror or something.
Because it kind of is. Yeah. That's a good call.
It's not quite The Wicker Man, which is, obviously Lee's pinnacle and it has the nudity, Lloyd, that you would so desire.
It sure does, yeah.
Yeah, we did that years ago on the show, and that's the one that has that woman playing her ass
at the door.
Britt Eklund playing her ass in the in room while the other guy's in the bed trying not to masturbate.
Trying not to jerk off. Yeah. He's trying so hard not to jerk off.
Edward Woodward, man. Edward Woodward.
Yeah. Trying not to equalize his penis.
If he knew the end of that movie, he would have probably gone, fuck it, I'm going to beat one off right now.
Yeah, he should have beat it. Yeah.
He should have beat one off when he was in the fire. Just fucking out the time.
Yeah, he should have.
Fuck it if I'm going.
Yeah. Gotta go. Gotta fucking rub one out. Might as well.
Break one off the wrist as we go up in flames. Yeah, why not?
All right, Larry, I got to ask, we got more of these episodes coming up. Do you know, have you decided which movie we were doing next? Can we announce that?
Yeah. We're going to save the Karnsteins for last since it's a trilogy, even though they kind of span 70 to 74. I think we'll take the rest in chronological by release. So the next is going to be Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde.
All right. John, you come back for Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde?
If you'll have me, I'll come back and talk any movie at any time.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Okay. All right, John, give us all of your socials and any of that stuff so people can find you once again.
Social security number.
Yeah, give us your
mother's maiden name.
Dude, there's nothing. Someone can steal my identity. It's fine. There's nothing in any bank accounts. But anywhere where the words after movie and diner are put together, that's me. So on Facebook and Instagram and my email and my website, aftermoviediner.com, at aftermoviediner, that's me. I'm also at Be Kind Movie Vault on Instagram and on Facebook for my movie store. And like I say, if you look up Be Kind Movie Vault on eBay, that is me too. But After Movie Diner is like my most prolific online presence.
Manster, where can they find us?
Well, these days, I'm not even sure of that.
Instagram is at the Pint Pop.
At the Pint Pop. Are we still on YouTube? We still do that, right?
Yeah, we got a YouTube channel.
Yeah,
I don't know.
okay,
I don't know.
okay.
Just the Pint of Pop Culture podcast.
Yeah, the Pint of Pop.
Give them the
Podcast.
Patreon. Give them where the money comes in.
The www.patreon.com/the pint. You got 2 levels of Be a Pint Insider, $2.50 and $4.
Later on this month, well, either it's already happened or later on this month, Lloyd and I and Officer Mike did the 1985 James Bond film A View to a Kill, which surprisingly is about heavily about horse racing, which
Right.
I had completely forgotten about. Horse racing and neo-Nazi Christopher Walken.
Mostly horses.
It was a fun episode, so join us there. And before we go, Larry, this is obviously Scary Larry's House of Horrors. Can you announce the next couple of Freak Out Fridays? Now, this will be coming out right at the end of January. So
Yeah,
what do we
sure.
have? What do we have coming up?
So January 24th, Freak Out Friday, which is a week from today. So this maybe happened already by the time this comes out, or a week from tomorrow. That one is Terror Train, the Jamie Lee Curtis New Year's Eve party on a train with David Copperfield. If that doesn't fucking draw you in, I don't know what will. That should have just been the tagline, right?
Yeah.
Then in February, I believe it's the last Friday of February, Society, which I tried to show 3 or 4 months ago, but as happens sometimes, the licensing got thrown up into the air. But now the licensing has landed again, and I was able to grab it. So that'll be February. I haven't planned out anything past that, but I'm sure there will be more double features. The next one is February 8th, sold out. 2 Cronenbergs, The Dead Zone and Videodrome. And fuck it, the April 12th, not announced yet. Maybe not even announced by the time you hear this, but hey, congratulations. You get a little something. It's time for Animals to Attack. We're going to do 1976's Grizzly and 1983's Cujo.
Nice.
Oh, wow.
Fantastic.
All right.
That'll be a lot of fun.
I have never seen either. Cujo seems like it should be something I've seen by now, but I'm one of those guys. Like, I hate dog shit. I love dogs, so I hate like Cujo. He's not a bad dude. He just chased a bat into a cave or some shit. Like, you know, I don't want to see it, but I want to finally see the movie.
Well,
So-
Grizzly, have you ever seen Jaws?
Yes. Yeah.
And you've seen Grizzly. Just superimpose a bear on that shark, and you got the same fucking movie.
All right. Well,
But I love it.
this has been an awesome time. We are going to talk about a whole lot more Hammer coming up through this year. So thank you for listening. And Manster, say the words.
See ya.
Toodaloo.
We are leaving!